Coach Bowles reacts to word that Robbie Anderson is talking Pro Bowl during the game, and his response is that Anderson is acting selfish. My response? Then do something about it, Coach. Are you bothered by the penalties and poor mental toughness? Then do something about it and toughen the team up, Coach. Bowles says, we don't play team football in the fourth quarter. Well, then make sure you put players in the game who will play team football, Coach. And Bowles says we're not a playoff contender. Well, then it's time to play petty, Coach. Stay tuned as we dive into everything New York Jets football on Jets Uncovered. Is in blue, transmissions all right, thanks for tuning in to Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network for this Monday, the 27th of November, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma, as we've got a lot to talk about. Jets lose another close, tough one to Carolina, but that's what happens when you have a young team, and the best you can hope for when you have a young team is that the team plays hard, and the Jets do play hard. And as we've said for weeks, as I've said for weeks, you just got to keep, as a Jet fan, feeling good about it. And that's all you can do, because this is not a playoff team. It's never been a playoff team. It's never been about a playoff team. It's been about thinking that as we head into week 12 and 13 and 14, or hoping that this team would show that they were going to get better and they were going to stay competitive and they were not going to give up on their coach. And all signs point to exactly that happening. So I know the media wants to react to these losses in a specific way, but we're not going to do that, or at least I'm not. Let's welcome in my co-host to the show. He is, of course, has been with us now for the entire season, another Jet fan, and of course also works with rotowire.com, Jan Levine. And Jan, again, another tough loss, but I'm sorry, I just I don't react like that in these games. I just don't. I mean, okay, I mean, it's a loss. I don't know. This isn't a playoff team. This isn't. I don't know. I just don't feel anything when this team loses right now, because I guess I just don't have any wild, crazy aspirations.
Well, I do think the one thing you can say is disappointment. And when you lose 4 games in the manner in which they've lost all 4, and games that they've led, going into the fourth quarter, and they've blown leads in each of those games, I can understand the disappointment factor taking effect, because you kind of look at the what if they had won all 4, what if they had won 2 of the 4, and
yeah, what if what?
Coming into the season, we would have been happy to have them be competitive, but when you get knee deep into the season itself and things like this happen, your mindset shifts from just being competitive to wanting to win. And the one thing that we can say, that despite all the losses that have happened, what we haven't seen is the team quit in any way, stretch, or form. It would have been easy for them after they were down with those 2 touchdowns given up within a short span of each other for them to kind of just pack it in. But you did see the team go down the field and score a touchdown, make it close. And even though that the Mike Pennell penalty, which allowed Carolina to run the clock out and prevented the Jets from having a chance to maybe come back and win it, was huge. The one thing they didn't do was quit. And further evidence of that is Jamal Adams crying on the sidelines afterwards. So, you always talk about NFL players not showing emotion or not caring, or
Sure,
only in it for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And here's an instance where he is a rookie, and granted, maybe he's not jaded yet, but he's taking these losses to heart. And I think the team as a whole, and this is one of those things we've talked about that is a check on Todd Bowles' plus column, is the team continues to play hard week in and week out and comes prepared for the most part week in and week out and doesn't quit. And to me, that's the mark of a cohesive team, and a team that we all think has a shot to be something really good, hopefully in the future, with a couple more players on this team.
Yeah, and look, I don't know what when you're talking about being a competitive team. Look, when you're competitive, when the hope is that you want your team to be competitive, it's not all storybook. It's not all, okay, we're going to be trailing the whole game and we're going to just come up short, because you know what'll happen then? Well, they don't know how to complete games. So, all right, well, then on the flip side, we had leads and we lost leads, so they don't know how to hold on to leads. It's always going to be something. So the question then is, are you at least competitive? And that's what we talked about, as you just said. That's all we hoped for. Be competitive, win a game every few weeks, which they have. Maybe don't destroy your draft situation, which they haven't. It's not going to be completely bad. We don't want this team to necessarily be 8-8 and 9-7 and miss the playoffs. What will that do? Nothing. So learning to win, sure, okay, but as I've said many times, look at the Eagles. They lost a lot of bad games last year, and look how they reacted. And so it's about reaction next season. What do you do in the offseason? How do you get better? And that's the whole idea about bringing certain veterans or keeping certain veterans on the team like Josh McCown. It's the only reason why I'm happy that Josh McCown's on the team is because of everything off the field. I don't like the fact that he's stunting the growth of young quarterbacks, but I like the fact that, having a guy like that in the locker room and guys like that, including the coaches that are on the sideline, as much as the media wants to criticize them, this is what's going to help this team to hopefully get over and learn that this is what you have to do to get better. And then we're going to bring you more talented players in the offseason through the draft, through free agency, and they're going to help you to win more games next year. And we're definitely going to find you a quarterback as well that can help you to win these close games at the end and not blow the close games by making some bad plays, which McCown has done a couple of times this season. So it's a quarterback league. You got to have one. And I'm telling you, as long as this team grows with maturity, as long as they bring in some new talent and they find that quarterback that can help them win those close games, I'm feeling pretty good about things. I'm sorry. I have no negative comments about what I've seen.
I mean, the only negativity you can have is the manner in which the games have been lost. But as you said, this was not unexpected given what they looked like coming into the season. And the fact that they have lost these games is clearly, as I said earlier, disappointing. It's not surprising. It's not unexpected. Still doesn't make it any easier to deal with. We all viewed this season as a growth year, one that if we were lucky, we wouldn't get blown out and we wouldn't look embarrassing in every game. And so far, that's clearly not been the case. I don't think, other than the Oakland game, you can really look at any game and say they were out of any contest, especially having blown four games late. So this has been a year of growth. This has been a year of maybe figuring out what you have on this team and, more importantly, what you don't have on this team. And we see there's clearly a need for a better pass rusher, an outside pass rusher, which we've talked about before this season. There's a need for some improvement on the offensive line. I think wide receiver-wise, you've now, regardless of what Anderson did yesterday, and personally, I really don't have as big of an issue. I'm not sure it's the right place to be doing during the game, and maybe he was joking around, but I really don't think it impacted how hard he played. You do maybe have a true number one in Anderson that teams are going to game plan against him, despite
No. There's no way Robbie Anderson's a number one receiver. Sorry.
Again, teams are game planning to stop him. In my opinion, that is the mark.
How do you know teams are game planning to stop Robbie Anderson when you have Curse? Why are they? Who says they're game planning to stop Robbie Anderson?
I think they're going to get. I personally don't view Curse as a number one.
I don't either.
Anderson is more of a number
they
one.
They don't have a number one.
Curse is.
All right, that's okay.
Twos?
All right. I look at it again. I'm willing to give Anderson a shot at being a number two. Yes. And I think he's developing that over the past months. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't doubt that ability that has turned up. I mean, yeah, I do think maturity though in the long run, I think maturity is going to be a big factor for him because there's a lot of receivers out there that have had really good careers for a long time, but usually they're not very immature. Sometimes they can have a pretty good year or two, like a Pro Bowl level year or two, even if they're immature, but it doesn't last much longer. So if you want somebody that is, and maturity also helps to be a team player. How rare, I mean, really, when was the last time you saw a team win a Super Bowl and have some sort of a malcontent receiver? I mean, you don't want that. He's going to have to grow up. I'd rather have, and I think that's what Bowles the point was. And here's the thing, what he has to do, though. We talked about this after the Miami game. What did he do? He didn't do nothing. Anderson started the next week. So if you're sick and tired, coach, of having, Anderson, and you want him to become, because this is Bowles' responsibility. If you're going to be a good coach and a good leader and a good mentor, and you've got to guide this kid to being a complete receiver and a team player and everything that you want him to be as your team tries to win a championship in a few years, then what you got to do is you got to teach him a lesson. You can't just talk. Talking isn't working with him. So how do you teach the kid a lesson? Well, a couple different ways. And I'm not specifically also talking about him. He also mentioned about we're not team oriented in the fourth quarter. Well, then sit, guys.
I'm not sure what does that mean necessarily.
I know. I'm kind of baffled by that as well. But if he says we're not being team oriented in the fourth quarter, then that means there are certain players that aren't playing as you know they're not going with the script, I guess, that you was coached all week, and they're trying to be one-on-one or trying to do it themselves. If that's the case, coach, do not start them the next week. You can play them in the second quarter, but give them a sign. Or next week in the fourth quarter, do not play them. That's what this whole season's supposed to be about. It's about learning. And look, you got kids like Hansen and Stewart that aren't getting any playing time. So if I'm not saying it is Anderson or Kirsch that's the problem, but let's say it is. Let's say if Anderson's not being a team player in the fourth quarter, simple. Sit him in the fourth quarter and play Hansen and Stewart. That's what you're trying to do anyway, is develop these kids.
I don't know if I'm sitting Anderson. If you want to maybe send a message in terms of sitting in the first series, I can maybe get it.
Well, how is that going to help him in the fourth quarter if he's not being a team player in the fourth quarter?
Look, Anderson was targeted heavily the first quarter yesterday. In the second half, he really didn't see many targets. But the one target he did get was the 54-yard touchdown pass from McCown, where they both read the play the right way, and he broke it off and went deep, and then following McCown's guidance on that. To me, what I personally think what he did, would I have done it? No. Do I think it's kind of a little bush league? Maybe to a certain extent, but I also think that they made a mountain out of a molehill. It was a joking thing. I don't think it impacted his ability or his focus or anything on the field. So for him to call it out,
what did you think was wrong with it? What do you think they thought was wrong with it?
I think they thought it was being selfish, that he was being a me player as opposed to a team player. That's where I think he's coming up with that comment. And again, you want to address that privately, you want to address it privately. He probably could have said, I wasn't in favor of it. I don't think it's the right thing to do during the course of the game. I will have a conversation with Robbie and we'll handle it internally. And that's probably what he should have done. Now people have made it out to be a cause to love, that it's a bigger deal than, in my opinion, it probably really is.
Well, I don't think it's something like that. I don't think it should be just all right, we need to have a conversation. Don't do that again. You understand you shouldn't do it. Yeah, I shouldn't. Okay. I think it's more than that. I think what it is okay, well, you do understand, because this is more, I would sit down with Robbie and I'd say, Robbie, you do understand what was wrong about it, right? I want to know what you think was wrong about it, Robbie. I'm not going to tell you. I want you to tell me, what do you think was wrong about it, Robbie? Because what it's important to do here, again, is teach the kids. Is say, look, because you can't, some people are just selfish. That's just the way they are. A lot of receivers are selfish, like I was saying before, and they're really good receivers. That's just the way they are.
That's the mentality of a true stud receiver. They want the ball.
Yeah, but you also, but you don't want, though, and this is important. What you don't want is a play. See, this is what I'm trying to say. It's important for them to understand what they did wrong. This is for you to think and even have something come out about you as we are fighting for our lives in this game to win a team game. Don't you understand? That's you shouldn't be, not even the slightest bit should ever be popping in your head about me. That's the thing that you have to think about here. You can't. I have no problem with you being, pompous, or you being, whatever, selfish, and you being, hey, cocky. I got no problem with that. That's fine. You can be cocky all day long. You can after the game or whatever. You want to be cocky and you want to shove it in their face in the camera. I got no problem with that. But it's important for you to understand that this is, why would that even pop into your head, Robbie? I mean, that's a major maturity problem for him to be thinking about himself, even if he's just kidding, as opposed, it's not the first quarter. It's not first game of the season. I mean, we are battling for a playoff berth in a crucial time of the year, and you're talking about something that has to do with yourself. That's a major maturity problem.
Again, he's had the issues in the past. He's had maturity issues, maybe that was a cause for him not getting drafted. Maybe that was a reason why, he had issues breaking through on the team. But I personally, again, you don't know everything that happens in a locker room. You don't know everything that happens behind the scenes. From what we've seen, It doesn't look like any maturity issues. It doesn't look like he's been a detriment to the team. It doesn't look like he's taken the focus away from the team at all. He did a move that some could be viewed as self-serving. You want to say that the case, I can't argue with that. If you want to say that he took the focus off the team and put it on himself during the course of the game, maybe where he shouldn't, can't argue with that as well. But I kind of think also that we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. It was probably something done in jest and in fun. It wasn't something that he was trying to basically say, I'm the only guy on this team and therefore you should consider me. I think he was joking around, and maybe we're 100%, maybe I'm 100% wrong on that. But I think also that we've made it into too big of an issue, though, that Bowles, when you factor in what Bowles said, that's understandable why he may have focused on this, as he's trying to get people to be focused more on team than on me.
Well, look, part of it is they're not 7-4, they're 4-7. That's also a major part of it. See, if you're going to be like Antonio Brown, you're going to be somebody that's going to be cocky and say something like that. Well, you know what? You better have won a Super Bowl. You've better had a lot of success. We've won a couple division titles. You want to do that? That's fine. Yeah, but when you're building a young team and you're trying to make sure that all the other young guys on the team are trying to understand, is that acceptable or not? It's very important for the coach to make sure that everybody understands that is not acceptable. That is not what we should be thinking about. And for me, it's not about. I don't think this is something that I think is okay. Well, Robbie Anderson should be cut, or Robbie Anderson should be benched for the game, or he should be fined. No, I don't think any of that stuff. But I do think it's a very important thing for the culture of the organization, which is why I do think that it does matter. And I think it's more the coach's responsibility, though. I think this is not on Robbie. He's too young. It's up to the coaches to figure out a way to make sure that they get to these kids. And that's why I don't see it. I'm getting the feeling, because I only see Coach Bowles from the perspective that we see him during games. And you want to know why sometimes he maybe don't get calls? I'm not surprised. If you're a ref, would you really be bothered? And would you really feel like, oh, I better not give him a wrong call? Because why? What's this guy going to do? He never says anything. He never speaks. I'm not going to, so I got no problem with that. So Bowles, I think if he's going, what he's got, I hope what he does behind closed doors isn't what he's showing us on the field and even these press conferences. I hope that he's being kind of hard on these guys when it's time to be hard on them. And because I'm not seeing it, like I said, I see it with other really great coaches. We've said this before. Other great coaches are not going to let some of these things go by. They're going to be penalties. I don't see the penalties. I don't see how these kids can learn it all. If there's what's going on? Is there something behind closed doors maybe that's going on we're not seeing? Okay, I hope so, because I'm not seeing anything. It's like people are making, stupid comments, stupid plays, all these penalties, and okay, well, what are we getting out of it? What's happening? How are they learning? Because coach is saying something like, can't do that. What is it? Because it's not working, whatever it is he's doing, and I don't think he's doing it right.
I don't know we don't know what happens behind the scenes. So we're presuming that the facade that we see to the public is like the facade behind the scenes. And from listening, Muhammad Wilkerson, I think, was on with Joe and Evan on WFN in New York this week. And Wilkerson said that Bowles is not 100% like that behind the scenes, that the media only sees a certain aspect of him. And this maybe is the persona that he likes to reveal. And it's probably something that would benefit him from changing. It would benefit him every once in a while from losing control on the sidelines and blowing up on official. The Austin Seferian-Jenkins call, I would have loved to see him lose his cool completely and go off, but that's not his mentality. It also wasn't the way he was as a player. That wasn't the way he was as an assistant coach, so it's not a big shock. That's not the way he is as a coach. So there are certain times where you have to step out of your comfort zone and maybe light into an official or maybe light into a player and send an example. But from what we've seen so far in 2+ years of Bowles, and especially this year when he's fighting for his job, if he hasn't done it now, I don't foresee it happening anytime in the near future.
Yeah, and see that, and the reason why I brought up, that he may be doing something behind closed doors is because, and that's fine. But the thing is again, I'm not seeing the results. So whatever he's doing is not working. So, and so if he is doing something where he is, but again, this is why I get back to the one thing that I know that he can do that I've seen many coaches do, and that is you got to sit the guys. You sit the guys at some periods of the game. I don't know when, but do it. And again, if he's going to be the one that's going to sit out and say something, which we both are confused by, with okay, you're not being a team play. Now is he talking about Mike Pennell? Maybe. I mean, okay, let's say he is. Well, then he doesn't play in the fourth quarter next week. There's got to be some sort of a message that you play to these guys. I'm sorry, but I'm not just making this stuff up. I'm not 6 years old. I'm talking about this through experience. I have seen coaches do this with players for years in all sorts of sports, and they don't do it because they're just doing it for no reason. They do it because it works. Does it work on everybody? No. That's why Bill Parcells was such a great coach. He was a great communicator because he knew that different players responded to different ways of hey, you know what? I've got a policy this guy a certain way. I got a policy that guy a certain way. I got to bench that guy because I think if I do, he'll respond better. I got to be soft with this guy. So that's all a part of growth. And I would hope Bowles would know that because that's his mentor is Bill Parcells. So that's what he's got to do. I mean, I can't imagine that if you picked up the phone and called Parcells and say, hey, I need some advice, that wouldn't be part of what he would give him. So let's see it. Let's actually see it. Let's see you do something. If somebody makes a bad play on the field next week, let's see you take that player. Let's see you talking and sitting with that guy in the bench. I don't care. You can have an arm around him. I don't care. And then you say, hey, with your arm around him, no, you're not going to embarrass him. You can have an arm around him and say, hey, you know what? You're sitting out the rest of the quarter because I don't know what else to do. Sit, think about what you did, okay? Because we're trying to play team football here and you're not doing it. So you think about it, okay? And then I'll call you when we need you in a few minutes. Do something.
Yeah, but you're presuming that. I mean, again, I know you're just making an exhibit of Pennell, but I don't think Pennell's penalty was one where, I'm going to basically take my pound of flesh and don't really care if I get a penalty. I mean,
well, I'm guessing. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm guessing. I don't know what he's saying. I'm trying to figure out who is he talking about.
I think we both don't necessarily know what he's saying, and I think that
is it Anderson? Is it Pennell? I don't know. Who is it?
I don't
know. It's got to be somebody.
Well, at some point in time, if you're saying that, you're going to run out of players to potentially bench.
Well, that's if you're doing it wrong, and that's if guys aren't responding to you, and that way you get fired. So because he hasn't benched anybody, as we've talked about. So I mean, can you bench somebody? I mean, that's all I'm asking for. Bench somebody, please. And I'm not talking about bench for the game. I'm just talking, can you sit somebody out for a half or a quarter? And again, you can even do it as a response to, hey, you know what? Make sure we're going to go over this again. And I'm telling you, if I see that mistake again in the game, you're going to sit down. That kind of thing. He does it in the game, you sit him. You sit him for a quarter. You sit him for the half. You get into the locker room. You get to him. You talk to him again. You say, is this going to happen again? Because this is what's going to happen. I need team football. Whoever it is that's not playing team football, I'm not getting through to you, so this is your penalty. And you know what? You have a young team. There are other young players. That's why we were talking about wide receivers. It's not like there's scabs on the bench like 2 or 3 years ago. You've got 2 draft picks sitting on the bench that don't get any playing time. So if it is a receiver, then go ahead and do it and tell Hansen or Stewart to get in the game because you can't lose in that situation, especially when you're 4-7. You know you're not going to the playoffs. This is about growing as a team. This is about seeing if these kids can play in the regular season. So worst case scenario, let's say it is Anderson or Kearse, sit him for a half or a quarter and let Hansen and Stewart play. I mean, is that a bad thing? And really, this team doesn't have any position that they couldn't do that.
I think Hansen was on down the stretch yesterday. I did see him several plays. Stewart not necessarily as much, but Hansen was getting some time down the stretch. So I don't think he was purposely benching Hansen. But I do think that Stewart's PT, at least when I've seen, I got to check some of the numbers, has dwindled by comparison.
Yeah, it's look, I think we're getting to that point though. I don't think we're going to have to really argue about it anytime. Look, the way the Chiefs are playing, who knows? Because the Jets are playing better than the Chiefs are right now. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets beat the Chiefs. Is that good for the team? No, because I think we're there. We talked about this a week or two ago. Remember, we said if they get to this point and then lose to the Chiefs and they're 4-8 and they get to the Denver game, we said that's it. That either got to be the week that he makes the changes, including the quarterback spot, or it's the week before he makes the changes, or maybe he does it during the game. But I don't think there's any way you can go into the Denver game at 4-8 and not start making changes. You can't. It's impossible, because everybody knows that at 4-8 you are not going to the playoffs. So what are you doing? It's time to start. And look at Sean McDermott. Let me tell you something. I said this on my other show, and I'm so glad that they won, and I'm not surprised that they won, because I actually picked them to win that game, because I really think what Sean McDermott did was a stroke of genius, and I am so happy that there is a coach in the NFL and in both college and the NFL especially that can be smart enough to say, I'm not going to keep doing this and batting myself in the head week after week. My quarterback's not doing his job. He's probably not the long-term answer anyway. I can't keep doing this. Even though I'm a playoff contender, I'm going to find out what I have with my young quarterback. And I've said this for years. Play the kid a series. Play the kid a half. Play the kid a game. Nobody's telling you to start him for 3 or 4 weeks. Can you just show me the backup young guy and see what you got? He did. He was lousy. He brings Taylor back in, and they win, and they're better for it. Why can't more coaches do that?
I mean, if you look at how poorly Peterman played, I mean, he was horrific.
Oh, so terrible.
I don't give McDermott any credit. I think McDermott actually was attempting to improve his team. I don't think the viewpoint was, well, hopefully he'll struggle, and then I'll turn back to Tyrod Taylor. I mean,
No, I'm not about the win. I'm not talking about. I'm just saying that it was you are doing something that nobody ever does, which is, I'm going to give another guy a shot. Hey, he stunk. I'm going back. I'm doing it because I want to fire up the team. I'm going to do something that no other coach usually does which I've preached for years. Let's just see the backup. Can we see him for a game? Oh, he stinks? Okay, at least you tried. Now bring the other guy back, because we know what the other guy can do.
Well, let me ask a question. Do you not know already what Hackenberg can do?
I would probably put Hackenberg, to tell you the truth, in the same boat as Peterman. So if I've got Petty...
You kind of already know what you got out of Hackenberg.
Well, you probably do, and there's no way that I would. I would probably, though, in a regular season game, which he has not played, I'd want to see something, especially if I think that, you know what, chances are he's not going to be here next year. There's just no way could I never give this kid a chance to play in a regular, even if it was just a half. Let me see. Go ahead, go in there. Let me see. I'd have to try it.
I can give you that, but I think we both kind of know what we have out of Petty, though I do want to see him play and see if.
Well, I don't think we know what we have at Petty.
Well, I think we have an idea from last year.
I don't.
I think what I want to see is, was there any growth?
Absolutely. That's what I want to see from Petty. I want to know if with a better coaching staff and better talent, does he have the talent to go out there himself and actually play better? He's got a different system as well. Let's see. Because look, right. There's no way Bryce Petty is worse than some of these other quarterbacks that we've seen this year. It's come on. So
no disagreement. I think we're both aligned with that. I think we both have the same view as to what that is and what he is and what he's going to be. So I think we're both in the same viewpoint on that one. I do think, though, what I would like to see is each of them, as we've talked about, I'd like to see each of them at least get a chance.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're running out of time.
I want to see each of them get at least a chance. I think, as you said, the Chiefs game this week will drive a lot. Chiefs have been horrific. If the Jets beat the Chiefs and they're on the fringe of playoff contention,
it'll be another 2 weeks.
I do think he'll stick with McCown.
Of course he will.
If they somehow lose, I do think that the powers that be up above him will start pushing Bowles to play one of the two quarterbacks to kind of see what they have. And look, I think McCown could be back as a backup next year. I don't think there's any reason why he might not be, because I don't think one of these two quarterbacks will be around next year also.
Well, that's what we talked about and that's the whole reason why you want to also see Petty, because you want to know whether or not, all right, maybe he's not, maybe we're not going to not draft a quarterback in the first round for him, But okay, he showed us enough that, all right, I think he could be our backup next year. So, let's go with that, and then McCown can retire, and we'll go with Petty, and then maybe even buys Hackenberg another year as a third stringer. Because that's the thing. That's the other thing, is if you think Petty can be your backup at the very least, you could even start the season with Petty next year until your rookie starts, if he doesn't play well enough in the preseason, then at least it also buys Hackenberg another year, which is nothing wrong with. I'd rather do that than give up on Hackenberg for Josh McCown to have him on the team for a year. For what? I mean, again, there's no reason for that if Petty can be your backup. And that's the reason why, we want to see him in there, because it's way too late to play Hackenberg at all. The only way we're going to see Hackenberg this year is if Petty gets in there for a game or two and just doesn't really look that good at all. And he's like 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, that kind of game. Okay, you know what? We got a game left, last game of the season. Let's see Hackenberg. That's it. That's the only way. Because if Petty comes in there and starts playing well, you're not going to bring Hackenberg in. You're just going to keep playing Petty. Give him more time.
Right.
Let's just see what he can do. So I think we probably have gone too far into the season that we're not going to see Hackenberg. So I'd like to see that if, and I'm sure they would, trust me. I'm sure Maccagnan does not want to embarrass himself if he's unsure and say, you know what, I'd rather just give him another shot at least as a third string, bring him into camp again, one last chance. And then it's all about the quarterback position at the draft. I mean, that's what it's all going to be about. And again, I'm really pleased. I'm more as every week goes on, and the more and more I hear about, especially Manish Mehta writing the other day about, the Jets need to get either Rosen, Allen, or Darnold. I couldn't be more happier that he didn't mention Baker Mayfield. It is. I mean, I am so happy about that, because that just, and I was so happy that Baker Mayfield grabbed his crotch the other day. Nothing makes me more happier to see Baker Mayfield slide down the draft boards, because that means the Jets can sit there wherever they are right now, and if everybody wants to gobble over of Rosen and Allen, they can do that. And then Baker Mayfield will be sitting there right on the table for us, which is the guy I want anyway. And to tell you the truth, the way Rosen has been banged up this year in the last couple of years, I'm not even sure I want to take the chance with him. I mean, he can't stay healthy.
I think it's a bit premature for me to say which quarterback I want. I'll agree with you. I mean, Allen hasn't played particularly well, but Wyoming has lost a ton of offensive talent there. So it's possible that he slides down the draft board, though if you're going by pure talent, I don't think he should. I know some people, the jury is still very much out on Mayfield. I like him a lot. I think he's got a certain amount of moxie. He seems to have the arm strength. He definitely has the fire and the leadership qualities you want to see out of a quarterback. Now, whether or not all the other intangibles, I'm not 100% sure yet. But you and I were both okay with Mayfield sliding down the draft boards, hopefully to land at the Jets position. Granted, I have to kind of see how he looks in some of the skills things that he does, and how he measures up in terms of some of the other aspects of the game that we don't know about yet. But from the big three that have been mentioned, I am a bit surprised that Mayfield's name hasn't gotten mentioned amongst them as being either, if not necessarily on the tier with them, maybe a partial tier below them.
Yeah, I think what it is a combination of two things. One is that they sense a Johnny Manziel in him. And number two is his height. And, they look at Josh Allen and they look at Baker Mayfield and the writers always go gaga over the big guys. They always do. And that's what they're doing. And Josh Allen does not have any accuracy whatsoever. It's going to take him some time. And you know what? If he slides and the Jets draft him and another team goes up and gets Mayfield and if Darnold comes in and Rosen, I'm not going to complain. I got no problem with any of the quarterbacks. I guess my point is that I want to see Mayfield slide because of where the Jets are, because knowing that the Jets aren't going to be able to get a quarterback at the spot that they're going to have to, meaning they're going to have to trade up to get one. So if Mayfield slides, we know our own team doesn't have to mortgage a whole lot. They can sit where they are and get a guy that I want anyway. So that's kind of my reasoning is that I am, and I'll say this, till the draft, I am going to be fine with any of those 4 quarterbacks. I think Darnold, though, has a little bit more work to do as well. No way would he start next year in the NFL. He's just so raw. I don't even think he's coming out, to tell you the truth, but he may. So yeah, I'm fine with any of them. I don't want Mason Rudolph, though. I will say that, even though I know some people are talking about him, but he's more than a borderline first rounder. So, but I don't think we have to worry about that. And I know some goofball from CBS Sportsline actually brought in Lamar Jackson, and somebody needs to have his head examined if he thinks Lamar Jackson's a first-round draft pick in the NFL, because I don't even know if he should be drafted. Lamar Jackson is not an NFL quarterback. So I think I'd be fine with any of them. I just don't want to see the Jets mortgage the future to get one.
And I don't think they will. And I think the way the organization is kind of set up is they think where they're sitting right now, they probably won't have to mortgage it to move up. And B, maybe they are lucky and one of these quarterbacks that we've talked about slips further than we expected, which seems to happen a lot more often than we expect.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Mayfield slips, and he slips on there, because Rosen's not going to slip. He's got way too much talent. Even with the injuries, he's and more than likely he's going to leave. I know Chip Kelly's coming in there. I don't know if that's going to do anything. I doubt it. Rosen knows he'll probably be the first pick in the draft, so I don't know why you wouldn't come out. Problem is, again, there are so many teams needing quarterbacks right now. Even teams like the Giants and the Steelers and the Broncos, teams you wouldn't even be thinking about, like when the season began. All of a sudden, you're like, after looking at Paxton Lynch, the Broncos are desperate for a quarterback. Everybody knows by now that the Giants are probably going to have to draft a quarterback. Pittsburgh, you don't even know if Roethlisberger is going to retire. You know what? You need a quarterback. And this isn't even talking about the Bills and all these other teams that need quarterbacks, like the Browns. So there's just so many teams that need quarterbacks that it's scary, And teams like what happened last year in the draft, they overdraft. It was shocking that people went that the Chiefs drafted Mahomes the way that they did, because they were desperate for a quarterback. And by the way, I want nothing to do with Alex Smith. I didn't want anything to do with Alex Smith in the beginning of the season when he was hot, and I don't want anything, obviously, to do with him now. I don't want anybody to talk about Alex Smith. I don't want any more 30 mid-year-old quarterbacks. No more young quarterbacks. That's all I want right now. I'm willing to lose if that's what it takes, but I do not want any middle-aged quarterbacks anymore. I've seen more middle-aged quarterbacks with this team to last me for the next 20 years.
I don't foresee Alex Smith coming here anymore anyway. Even if that was a remote possibility, I think his play over the last 4 to 6 weeks clearly has impacted his ability to land somewhere next year as a starter. He probably will go somewhere, but in terms of the earning capacity that he has now coming off of that horrific stretch, unless for some reason he turns it around the last 5 weeks of the year and leads Kansas City deep into the playoffs, I think that's going to have a material impact on where he lands and how much he makes next year.
All right. Well, so I'm sure they'll probably talk about it this week because he's coming to town. And then the Jets are in Denver and then New Orleans or New Orleans. And then they host the Chargers and at the Patriots to end the season. So
yeah, and that end of the season is rough because the Chargers by then we'll see, but if they haven't already clinched the division, they may be one game away from clinching the AFC West.
Well, that's if the Chiefs lose to the Jets. Yeah.
Even if they don't lose to the Jets, I think the Chargers right now are showing themselves to be the class of the division.
Well, we'll see. I've seen this before with the Chiefs for years since Reed's been there. They go through these stretches. So they just got to get a win. And just like Atlanta, they just got to get a win. Maybe we're the exact remedy they need. Come in here, beat the Jets, and then they start winning again. But anyway, Jets will get a hand in the West, that's for sure, playing the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos, even though the Broncos, I guess, maybe we'll see Paxton Lynch. I have no idea. I will say this, though. You know what? I'm really happy for Blaine Gabbert. Because I liked what I saw out of him in the preseason, and I'm not surprised that he played pretty well yesterday based on what I saw with Bruce Arians behind him. Good for him, because I'll tell you right now, if I'm Arizona, which is another team that needs a quarterback, I'm feeling pretty good about the rest of the season with Blaine Gabbert and maybe having Blaine Gabbert as my starting quarterback next year. So it just shows you that sometimes there are guys out there. Is A.J. McCarron that guy? I mean, will the Jets have to trade for a guy like A.J. McCarron? I mean, there's possibilities out there, and I'm willing to go down the road of the A.J. McCarrons of the world as well. I just don't want anybody in their 30s. That's all.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, again, McCarron, we know that Cincinnati clearly wants to move him, as we saw earlier this year. So the Jets having the ability to go trade for him may not be as difficult, but though that's one of those things you wait to see what kind of happens in the draft first and then make a move like that.
All right. So next week we are going to wrap up a Jet-Chiefs game, and maybe by then, knowing the Jets and the whole situation that we've been through with them, I'm sure they will beat the Chiefs because that means more Josh McCown and another win, and that means more. That means a more unreasonable draft slot. So that's how things have gone for us as Jet fans over the last few years. Jan, appreciate it, and enjoy the game next week. And we'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, Jan. All right, that's Jan Levine. And again, rotowire.com @airjan23. That's where you can check out Jan. That's his Twitter handle. And that will wrap it up here for Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. We will see you again next Monday. By the way, we're going to have our weekend review. Ourlads Football Weekend Review is going to start in 1 hour. Ourlads Football Weekend Review, 1 hour. We will wrap up the weekend in the NFL and college football. We'll preview the game tonight between Baltimore and Houston. So thanks for tuning in to Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. And we'll see you again next Monday.